In talking to the press following a campaign rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, that occurred over the weekend, Republican vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance told reporters where he and former President Trump are when it comes to government funding for Planned Parenthood. And like other statements we've heard from the Trump-Vance campaign, the focus was on late-term abortion.
The question of defunding Planned Parenthood, look, I mean, our view is we don't think that taxpayers should fund late-term abortions. That has been a consistent view of the Trump campaign the first time around. It will remain a consistent view.
Well, that's great to hear. But a question comes up, is it only late-term abortions that we shouldn't be funding? Well, joining me now to discuss this is Mary Szoch. She's the director for the Center of Human Dignity here at FRC. Mary, welcome back to Washington Watch. Always great to have you.
Thanks so much for having me on, Jody.
Okay, so give me your reaction to these recent comments from Senator Vance. Is it enough?
Well, I was thrilled by what Senator Vance said here. When we talk about late-term abortion, for the majority of Americans, we bring to light the reality of what an abortion is and what it does. Americans are not comfortable with the idea of a woman in months 7, 8, and 9 going to an abortion business and having the abortionist there end the life of her child, who is likely able to survive outside the womb with assistance at that point. And so when we talk about late-term abortion, we bring that thought to people's minds. And the hope there is that they will eventually connect that baby at month 7 is the same exact baby that he was in month 5, in month 3, and right at the moment of fertilization. And so what I think the Trump-Vance administration, hopeful administration, would do to defund Planned Parenthood and say, hey, no funding of late-term abortions. Really, I'm hopeful that means they're committed to defunding Planned Parenthood completely.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Mary. It's the same baby at month 8, just for example, as it is in 5. So, I mean, as much as I'm grateful for their commitment to stand opposed to late-term abortions, the issue goes beyond just the late term. You know, so many of us who have been involved in the pro-life movement, I mean, we know how barbaric Planned Parenthood is, probably for at least 10 years or so now. There's been so much evidence that have come forth, but some of our listeners and viewers may not be aware. Explain, if you would, Mary, some of the, just what this organization does, Planned Parenthood.
Well, since 2015, we have known that Planned Parenthood is profiting off the sale of unborn babies' body parts. And that was exposed by David Daleiden, and we know that Vice President Kamala Harris tried to shut down his attempt to bring this to light, and that she has gone after him because of what he has shown Planned Parenthood does. This is a horrific organization that profits off the death of unborn babies, off killing unborn babies. They market themselves as an organization that does mammograms and, you know, whatever other screenings, but in reality, what they are doing is killing unborn babies. Their number of breast cancer screenings has decreased by 81% since 1999. 81%. That's not an organization that's focused on the health care of Americans. That's an organization that's focused on its wallet. They've also increased recently their efforts to focus on transgender hormones for people who have gender dysphoria. And this, again, is an effort to focus on their pocketbooks, not on what's best for the American people, or not on what healthcare actually is, because Planned Parenthood does not do healthcare.
Yeah, great point. That's information that the public needs to be more aware of. I recall dealing with a lot of this during my time in Congress and was stunned year after year of the massive amount of money that Planned Parenthood receives. It comes from federal tax dollars. They're reimbursed for, using Medicaid and federal grant dollars, that type of stuff. But polls after poll after poll shows that the majority of Americans oppose public funding for abortion. Even many of those who are in the pro-life side of things don't believe tax dollars should go to the practice of abortion. So is this one of those kind of issues that the abortion industry, frankly, just tries to quietly keep under wraps for their own profitability? Is that what's going on here?
I think they do, and they say, well, taxpayer dollars don't go directly toward abortion. Well, money's fungible. So if I give you $1.50 and tell you to spend it on one thing, you can use your other $1.50 on that one thing and spend my dollar on whatever you want. What Planned Parenthood is doing is they're taking advantage of American taxpayer dollars. They're receiving almost $700 million in taxpayer funds per year. And that's per their annual report. So that's their statistic that's telling us that. And on top of that, they're receiving $997 million in donor funds. So not only should American dollars not be funding Planned Parenthood because they engage in killing unborn children and then selling their body parts, but they don't need American taxpayer dollars. And in fact, those dollars would be much better spent actually helping people who need help.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Do you have any sense that the American voters, American taxpayers, have any degree of real understanding the extent to which their tax dollars are being used to subsidize the abortion industry? I feel as though they don't. I don't think the American public gets it. Do you have any sense on that?
I don't think that they do either. The majority of Americans, as you have said, don't want their taxpayer dollars funding abortion. Planned Parenthood says every time someone brings out that they receive taxpayer funds, they say, well, the Hyde Amendment protects taxpayer dollars from funding abortions, which it does. But again, money is fungible, and Democrats, including the Biden-Harris administration, have tried to get rid of the Hyde Amendment at every chance that they have gotten. So this idea that it's not happening, that our money is not actually funding the killing of unborn children and the selling of their body parts, is absurd.
I know in response to Senator Vance's comments from the other day, Jenny Lawson, who is the executive director of Planned Parenthood's Super PAC, she told the Washington Post that federal funds cannot be used to provide abortion care at any point of pregnancy. All right, so let's go back to what you were talking about a moment ago. Here we have a continual pushback on that issue from Planned Parenthood. None of the money is going to abortion. How truthful is Jenny Lawson when she makes this kind of statement?
Well, I think when Planned Parenthood is planning their budget, they plan that budget including the $700 million, or approximately $700 million, that they're going to receive from American taxpayers. And so that means that they can perform more abortions in more states. If we had seen over the last 25 years, if we had seen a huge increase in the number of mammograms that they're performing or the amount of prenatal care that they do, they would maybe have a leg to stand on here. But in reality, these services have simply decreased. They have plummeted, actually. And the only things that have expanded are the number of abortions they do, which at this point are over 1,000 abortions a day. Over 1,000 unborn babies every day are killed by Planned Parenthood, and the gender transitions that they do, where now 45 of their 49 affiliates offer gender transition hormone therapy. So the idea that they're not using that American taxpayer dollars to expand their business is ridiculous.
Yeah, and when you talk about the so-called health care that they claim to provide, I mean, really, it looks like the new care, if we dare refer to it that way, that they're providing is what you just mentioned, the gender care, which is not gender care at all. But that seems to be a new arena that they are entering into with a great deal of aggression, isn't it?
It is, and that's a real moneymaker for them, because if you think about it, when someone has an abortion, Planned Parenthood, of course, is hoping that they'll be a repeat customer and that they'll have multiple abortions. But with gender hormone therapy, Planned Parenthood knows that this is a repeat customer. They know that this is someone who has to continue coming in regularly to receive the hormones. And so they've really struck a moneymaker here, and you can be sure that they will exploit the American people for everything that they're worth.
Wow. It's been said 1,000 times, but yet again, follow the money trail and you'll see it. If I can, Mary, shift gears with you real quickly. Probably a lot of voters, maybe a lot of our listeners, viewers right now may not be aware, but the life issue is majorly on the ballot in this upcoming election. At least 10 states are going to be voting on ballot initiatives regarding abortion. Can you give us the latest on that, what we're looking at going into this election?
Sure. As you said, Jody, there are 10 states where life is on the ballot. And with the exception of South Dakota, in every one of these states, the effort is to enshrine abortion through 9 months in the state constitution and get rid of every single law protecting unborn children that state previously had on the books. In South Dakota, the effort is also to enshrine abortion through 9 months, but some of the language there would allow some of the safety regulations to perhaps stay in place until, of course, the abortion industry goes back and challenges those. But what we're seeing in states like Missouri, states like Florida, states like New York, Colorado, Arizona, Nevada, these are states where there is an effort to say that there is a fundamental right to abortion, to reproductive freedom. That's the language that they use here in Maryland, that there's a fundamental right to reproductive freedom, or that abortion, not allowing, having any law that protects an unborn child is some form of discrimination, which is the language that we see in New York. And so these efforts would actually repeal any protections that the states have. And that includes parental consent laws. In some states, that includes parental notification laws. It includes protections for minors. It includes protections that prevent a sex trafficker from bringing in a minor to force them to have an abortion. So these are horrific ballot measures. And we need to get out and vote. We need to show up and stand up for the unborn.
Absolutely. And I'm really glad that you brought all that up, because FRC, Family Research Council, actually has published a new document. It's called Life on the Ballot, which does what you were just talking about. It explains the language on each of these ballot measures and the impact that each of these measures would have. Can you explain why this is a resource that really is desperately needed right now before we go into this election?
Well, the language of each of these ballot initiatives is a little bit different, and it's a little bit confusing. There are people who know a lot about protecting the unborn who read these ballot initiatives and wonder, like, gosh, what does that even do? And so what FRC attempted to do in this resource is to break down that language, to tell people what these ballot initiatives would actually do, and to rely on the history. So far, we have lost every ballot initiative on life in previous elections. We haven't been able to withstand the onslaught of funding from outsiders, from George Soros, from everyone on the left that is working as hard as they possibly can to enshrine abortion into state constitutions. And so this ballot initiative resource is an effort to combat that, to say what this actually does, and to tear apart some of the lies that the abortion industry says. There's not a state in this country where a procedure done to protect a mother's life is illegal. There's not a single state where that is illegal. And that's a lie that the abortion industry keeps pushing, and that they're pushing with each of these ballot initiatives. So hopefully our
Absolutely.
resource will be able to help combat some of
Absolutely. So where can people go real quickly to get this resource? I think it's extremely important for people to get and pass around. Where can they grab it?
It's available at frcaction.org.
All right. frcaction.org/life on the ballot. Mary Szoch, thank you so much. Director of the Center for Human Dignity at FRC. Tremendous information you brought our way as always, and we deeply appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me on, Jody.